I'm having some computer problems.
Yes, you know, I heard this recently and it made me think about you quite a bit. My wife
Okay.
as well. We had a conversation yesterday, pretty extensive conversation about what it boiled down to is money. And I heard buy nice or buy twice. Like I'm a buy nice guy, right? Like I'll buy something like my mountain bike shoes, for example. I just threw them away because I blew them out. I think I wore them for 15, 20 years. Um, are there cheaper options? 100%. But like I wore them for 15 or 20 years, right? So like, a lot of my stuff, I'm a believer in that. And as as your helicopter, I call it helicopters, your helicopter computer with the fan blows, now your mouse pad thing doesn't work. Um, the
Hey, man.
preponderance of all of our businesses are heavily reliant on us being able to use a computer that is reliable. Now I say that, and my computer is kind of a little bit
Yeah,
jank
you're
too. I went,
yeah,
I
you're
went, I went budget. I went budget on my computer, but it's interesting. It's a mindset. When someone's put those words "buy nice" or "buy twice," when I literally just heard that a couple weeks ago. That might be common to all of our listeners. I just had never heard that, but I was like, man, that's so true. And yet we struggle mightily. We struggle mightily with spending money and what we believe that means. I don't know. Just interesting. It's interesting.
I'm slowly changing my mindset towards that. The computer that I'm currently working on is like 10 years old. So I mean, at the time it was a good investment. Obviously, it's been a good investment. It's been lasting me for quite some time. So
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yeah.
but
No,
when it
it's
comes to
true.
like
And
food and things that bring us joy and I'm starting to spend more money on that kind of experiences. We've talked a lot about, creating
that's true. It's
memories.
true.
I've been spending a lot more money lately,
That's true.
but I'm still trying to create margin. And, from a financial standpoint, I
Hmm.
don't want to spend as much as I have. And that's kind of what we were going to talk about today.
I do. I do. I actually want to spend it all.
Here to spend.
I want to spend it all.
Well, we are going to die with zero. Like we can't
It's
save it
true.
when we go to heaven. But that's kind of
It's true. Unfortunately, I'd have to die tomorrow because I've already hit the zero
yeah, you
goal.
already hit the zero.
No, it's an interesting conversation. There's money. I think there's so many facets of this conversation that I mean, you could talk finances. We could run an entire podcast. We could do our men's group. Everything could be focused on just that singular topic of finances. And I think it's pretty fascinating how one of the things that we were just talking about, you talk about margin is like when you talk about financial goals and you talk about being focused on different aspects of it and creating margin and all these different things, there are a lot of principles that I think you see specifically in the business world and as people try to focus on the professional side or their entrepreneurial side, whatever that is, and yet they don't translate it over, right? They don't. It's almost like it's meant only for the workplace, and it's a completely different set of considerations for um, home. It's the same idea, the principles of finance and what you're trying to do, big picture, how that relates to time and what you're trading time for, like all these different aspects of it. It's so interesting and fascinating to me, the disconnect with our personal lives and our professional lives, and this idea of margin being excuse me, being a one of the just a very unique area that we've been talking about quite a bit, and and how we seek it and what it means for us and how our goals are aligned with it. And it just, there's this disconnect, there's this gap. In my view, there's just this gap.
Yeah, man. It's been a thought that's been heavily weighing on me. Specifically this year, I think that word margin specifically for me has been, if you're going to ask me like what the word is for the year, it's been margin. I've been really trying to simplify my life because I think that's where I was 2 years ago when we were running our Storehouse Retail Ventures, flipping in our turnkey business, flipping 50 houses a year and still in the Navy. And then we started, the mastermind and still doing the podcast. We had all these things going on. And I read a book this year called To Hell with the Hustle by Jefferson Bethke, and he talks about margin, and he talks about this concept of like looking at margin in the financial business world. You know, the concept is like you want to have way more income than expenses. You want to create margin. You want to that's your profit, right? There's going to be no financial planner that ever tells you spend as much as you make, right? Like you have to save money. You have to put money away. You have to create a gap between your income and your expenses. But that same concept, like you said, when you transition and you apply that to your life, to your calendar, to your time, we don't equate. We try to schedule to the T, like we schedule, everything back to back to back. We have, meetings to kids events to school events to, phone calls, and everything on a calendar is just scheduled to the max. And we don't give ourselves any time. We don't give ourselves any margin to be profitable in our life on our calendar. And it's just such an interesting thing to me of why that is.
Well, and I think, when you frame margin from the business perspective, and it effectively what it boils down to, the margin you're trying to create, the more money in, the less expenses, all that, what you're really highlighting is a priority, right? It's the priority. What's the priority of the business? The priority of the business is money. And
Yep.
I don't think that's, I mean, it's a business. Businesses should make money. If they don't make money, they're not viable, and then you should probably not do them. But I think when you consider the business and the margin, and the priority is the business, the money margin, I think it begs the question: what do you prioritize at home? And is the priority the margin in money? Is it in time? Is it relationally? Like, what margin are you trying to gain? What are you trying to maximize? And I just don't think we ask the right question, right? Like, a business exists to make money. Like, it's pretty, it's relatively black and white. Now, how you do that is, there's a lot of shades of gray in there, but and what you do with that, there's a lot of shades of gray in there. But it's, a business has to make money. Well, what is the business of Stu? What is the business of the Grazer household? What is the focus? And I'll tell you, a lot of us, it is. I had a long conversation with my wife about some expenditures and money, like I mentioned, and money becomes such a priority. But it was interesting to me, because the thing we were discussing was the money really was relatively inconsequential to what the cost was going to enable, which was a health discussion we were talking about, and gym memberships and workouts and all this kind of stuff. And it forced me to step back and be like, what is this conversation really about from my perspective? And if I'm having such a hard time with it, and it's a health and a longevity thing versus an expenditure, like, what is the disconnect in my life? Like, what am I trying? What is the margin that's most important to me? Is it this expenditure decreases margin between my savings and my expenditures? Or is the true, am I trying to increase the margin of time on this earth because of health, like, all these different things? And it's just, it's a fascinating question when you brought it up, because it just forces me to be even more introspective and be like, man, like, where are my margins? What am I trying to seek? And more importantly, are they reflective of it? Are the margins I'm seeking, are they reflective of my priorities? And oftentimes they're not. And no, I shouldn't lie. I take that back. They are absolutely reflective of my priorities.
Yeah.
Are my priorities reflective of what I desire them to be?
Yeah.
And I think it's a critical question. You just dig into this, this conversation we had on margin, as we discussed it a number of times now. It really has forced me to think, man, like, what am I, like, I really need to assess and get to the base of, are my priorities misaligned with the man that I want to be, and the impact I want to make, and the legacy I want to leave? And I think they are often.
It's a hard question, right? A lot of times you have these priorities in your mind of where you want to be, but your actions don't match those because of maybe it's other people's priorities on you, expectations, obligations. It's a hard pill to swallow if you really think about it.
It really is. It really is. And I'll tell you something that's been a big, it's not big, but it has been big in our family is I now, it's 2:30 here. I know my boys will be home in about 10, 15 minutes. And with daylight savings, or I guess daylight savings over, I don't even know. I don't know. I never know which one it is, but it's
It gets
getting
darker
dark
earlier.
a lot earlier. That's what I know. And that's what I hate. And so the timeline of me getting upstairs, getting them outside and playing catch and playing ball and doing the things that we love to do is shorter now. But I'll tell you, those are the things. The time that Noah and I are currently, I'm sorry, Noah and my wife Erica are currently in the middle of a game of multi-day Monopoly. Well, that the prospect of playing with his mom a board game in the morning gets him out of bed now. It gets him to get
Yep.
dressed on his own and do these things without any interference from us because he wants that time. It's not Monopoly. It's time. But him and his mommy are bonding. Well, they come home and they just want to go outside and play. Like that is time that again, that's the margin is a memory margin because our time together is that margin. Every single day you wake up, your kids are a day older, that margin is shrinking before they're out, right?
Yep.
And so you really, it's forcing me, it is literally forced action. Like I got to get outside and I got to play with these boys because this time is going to disappear and that margin is going to be shrunk to zero. And so what are you really trying to do? What are you trying to build? But I have an opportunity to grow a memory margin, right? I have an opportunity to forcefully build a time margin to enable to do the things that I truly want to do as a dad, because I surely don't want to be on a Zoom call with you for the next 3 hours and not
Come on,
not
man.
play with my kids. I love you and you are a priority, but like you again, you have to assess those things. You have to assess your yeses.
Love it, man. Love it. It's a great topic. It's a great question to ask yourself about your priorities and create some more margin in your life. It's important. Go do it. Take action. Uncommon action.
I prefer butter over margarine though.
See ya.
Peace.